Hi there, members of the public, and hopefully many of you are Newham residents. Welcome to another meeting of Cabinet here at Newham Council, and I just wanted to welcome members of the Cabinet and the wider executive alongside officers who are in attendance this evening, alongside thanking those members of the Cabinet that are celebrating Eid today for taking the time out to be part of this important decision-making forum. So, colleagues, as you all know, and this is primarily directed at members of the public watching this being broadcast live, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to everyone watching. And just a small piece of advice to officers, be mindful that you can be seen if you want to do any adjustments, personal adjustments. Also, just to advise to minimise travel and to continue to protect public health requirements for our residents, we have been encouraging most officers to be joining this meeting of Cabinet via Zoom, and those members of the wider executive who do not need to be here because it's only Cabinet members that vote, are also encouraged to join us via Zoom. And then I just really wanted to thank members of Cabinet for being here in person. There may well be some members of Cabinet who aren't here in person, and whilst they're able to participate in the debates and their attendance will be noted, it won't be officially recorded, nor will their votes be officially acknowledged. So the voting of Cabinet members and myself will only be permissible on any of the items being presented tonight if we are physically here. And I can see all of Cabinet here, I think. Right, thank you very much. So just with regards to the meeting etiquette, please can I ask that you indicate that you wish to speak by either raising your hand if you're sitting behind me and I can see you on the screen, and using the eyes on the back of my head. And if you are on Zoom, if you could indicate by using the raise hand function on the Zoom dashboard. And then can I also ask, in line with our ongoing COVID-19 requirements as a local authority, which were announced prior to the 19th of July, we are going to be maintaining the requirement in all council buildings that people keep their face masks on. So if you're physically in this building and are not yet speaking, could you please put on your face covering or your face mask until you're invited to speak. And then once you've finished speaking, please cover your face. And then finally, just to remind members of Cabinet and the wider executive and officers, if you are going to be speaking to any item, could you please introduce yourself when you are speaking? So let's commence. Before I jump onto the main agenda items, Clerk to the committee, can you please note the following reordering that I am going to be doing with regards to the agenda?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so we're going to be taking agenda item 1, apologies for absence as is, agenda item 2, declarations as is, minutes, agenda item 3 as is, agenda item 4, appointments to outside bodies as is. Then wish to take agenda item, where are you? Towards a Better Newham as agenda item 5. So it's currently agenda item 14. Did you get that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, followed by, as a new agenda item 6, the July finance review.
Yes, Chair.
Followed by homelessness and rough sleeping strategy is now the new agenda 7.
Okay.
Then housing allocations policy review is now agenda 8.
Yeah.
Street property proofing programme is now agenda 9.
Yeah.
Young people and food security strategy is now agenda 10.
Okay.
Stratford Youth Zone agenda item is now agenda item 11.
Okay.
Improving resident experience is now agenda 12.
Okay.
Affordable homes for Newham, Hartley Centre is now 13.
Okay.
Carpenter's Estate is now agenda 14.
Mm-hmm.
Local Development Scheme 2021, an update on planning policy is now agenda 15.
Yeah.
Allocation of community infrastructure levy for enabling works is now agenda 16.
Okay.
And then agenda items 17 and 18 remain the same as does the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
Get that? Yeah?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, I trust you can bear with us. Let's commence. Right. So, can I take any apologies for absence? First, from any cabinet member. Okay. Are there any other apologies that you've received, Joy?
No, we haven't received any official apologies. Hold on, just checking. Oh, sorry, Councillor Assa and Councillor Jahan.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So we've noted those. Colleagues behind me, are there any other apologies to be noted from any? Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Councillor Firoza Nekiwala.
Okay, just note the apologies from Councillor Nikiwala. Councillor Jane Lofthouse.
Jen Kitchen, Councillor Jen Kitchen.
Thank you very much.
And also, sorry, Chair, and also Councillor Muzabah Rahman.
Okay,
Did you mention James Usser?
yeah.
Okay.
So did you get that, Joy?
I did, yes.
All right, super. So we've noted apologies for absence. Colleagues, just drawing your attention, this is primarily directed at cabinet members. Declarations of interest, pages 9 to 10. Could you advise if across any of the matters that we're going to be discussing this evening, if there are any declarations of interests that you need to be making? So I'm going to just read out your names. Charlie McLean.
No, nothing to declare, Chair.
Thank you. Zulfikar Ali.
Nothing to declare.
James Beckles.
Nothing to declare.
Terry Paul.
Nothing to declare.
Sarah Jane Ruiz.
Nothing to declare.
Shaban Mohammed.
Nothing to declare.
Carleen Lee Parkway.
Nothing to declare.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz. Nothing to declare. Thank you. Colleagues, I'm taking as read the minutes as set out on pages 11 and 28 of the agenda have been read in detail by colleagues. Can you advise if there are any matters or corrections that need to be remedied on those minutes? I can't see anyone put their hand up. So can I just ask if you can confirm that the minutes as set out on pages 11 to 28 are an accurate record of the Cabinet held on the 7th of July 2021. Do we agree?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Right, agenda item 4, appointments to outside bodies. There are no appointments to outside bodies presently. So we're now going to be moving on to the agenda item new 5, which is the Towards Better Newham Quarterly Progress and Performance Report, April 2020 to March 2021. And I'll be introducing this for colleagues. So this report marks a really important milestone in the Council's delivery of our Towards Better Newham Recovery and Reorientation Strategy and Action Plan, which, as you all will be aware, was published last July with the action plan endorsed by Cabinet formally in November 2020. And in line with our governance arrangements and good governance practice here under this administration, you'll all be aware that following a decision made by Cabinet in December 2018, we agreed that we would be providing public updates on the progress improvements against the corporate plans that we have adopted since we stepped into office. So this report provides a progress and performance report for the entire year 2020-2021, but it also sets out the ways in which the previous iterations of the corporate plan. So we've had an interim corporate plan that was published for 2019 to the 2020 period, followed by a 3-year corporate plan, which we approved prior to COVID-19 in early March last year. And then we were dealing with the challenge of COVID-19, which led to a redevelopment or reiteration of our corporate plan under the auspices of Towards a Better World. So this report also sets out how we're going to be reorientating our performance framework so that it aligns to the Towards a Better Newham requirements. And you'll be aware that as part of that requirement, we set out much more clearly the way in which every penny and every pound and our actions towards a Better Newham endeavour actually relates to material outcomes for local residents. So we're embarking on a new performance-based framework that is predicated on outcomes, so that qualitative, rich measure of being able to show and track over the coming period and beyond how our strategies, our policies, our practice are really having a real impact on our Newham residents across the 8 pillars or missions that we have embraced. And you'll know the primary pillar that we are underpinning all of our work since we adopted the Towards a Better Newham action plan last November is the health, well-being and happiness of our residents in light of the unprecedented challenge and impact of COVID-19 here in Newham, and where we've recognised the enduring issues of poverty, inequality have had a disproportionate impact on our residents here in Newham, and how that has also amplified the racial injustices that have been experienced for too long by too many of our communities in a borough where 78% of our resident population is of minority ethnic heritage or origin. So in light of all of the Towards a Better Newham plans and pillars, the report sets out the progress made against our Towards a Better Newham strategy and action plan to date, given the strategy was launched last July, but the action plan was adopted last November, but there's been a very credible and exacting process of integrating the Towards a Better Newham into our performance framework. And I want to, at this juncture, commend the team being led by James Harters and overseen by Jessica, the entire team, for their absolutely incredible input on that front. So thank you very much. The other thing that this report does is also present the end of year position in relation to our current key performance indicators, and the full details are set out across the main body of the report and in the associated appendices. I just really wanted to draw a couple of quick headlines. So for the last time, the current set of key performance measures, which form part of the Council's 2020-2021 performance framework, 67% of indicators have moved in a positive direction during the 2020-2021 year, i.e. a year notwithstanding the fact that we've been challenged by a unanticipated, unprecedented global pandemic that is COVID-19. And then you'll also note that quarter 4 2020-21 monetary position of the corporate delivery plan, which was adopted at Cabinet November 20. 90% of the actions are either on track or have been completed, both in a positive direction, despite significant COVID-19 challenges. And then finally, the report recommends to Cabinet the formal adoption of the new outcomes framework, as I described in my earlier remarks, for the period 2021-2022 going forwards. And this really does signify a watershed moment in how we will be measuring success as an organisation. And let me just really conclude, colleagues, our adoption of this outcomes-based framework here in Newham, anchored by our Towards a Better Newham recovery and reorientation strategy, characterised by 8 pillars, very much reflective of our ongoing ambition and mission for the people and on behalf of the people of this borough, is being watched intently by many local authorities elsewhere. We are being pioneering on this front. So on that note, I will conclude and commend this report to the rest of Cabinet. I will invite Jessica and James if you'd like to add any additional words. Otherwise, I will open up to questions. Jessica, James?
I don't think I need to add anything, Mayor. That was very comprehensive, and I think you've drawn out all of the key points. I think the Appendix 3 with the new outcomes framework measures is the result of lots of work by lots of colleagues across the council, and indeed by lead members. So I do think it really does reflect the priorities set out in Towards a Better Newham, better than our previous crop of measures. And there's still a lot of work to do, but I think it will really help us assess how well we are delivering on the ambitions that you've set. So nothing further to add. Thanks.
Thank you very much. James Partis.
Likewise, yeah, I think you've very ably drawn out all of the major innovations and recommendations of the report. There's, yeah, as Jessica set out, a significant programme of work now follows, really, to build on a very successful first year of half year of implementing Towards Better Newham, and a significant research, insight, and data gathering process is what's going to characterise the next process, the next quarter, as well as driving through, as we have done over the last 6 months, all of the key commitments made in the corporate delivery plan. So nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Super, thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? I am going to, could you shoot your hand up? I can't see anyone behind me. I can't see any hands up on the dashboard, albeit I can't really see. Whoever's got access to the dashboard, could you click on participants so that I can see if anyone's got their hand up? No. Right, okay. So colleagues, obviously you've been wowed and absorbed and arrested by the potency of this Towards a Better Newham report. But it really does make for interesting reading, and in any case, Cabinet members, you are going to have to all read it because you're going to be held account to the performance metrics.
On that basis, then, can I just have a comment?
Yes.
Make a comment, because I have always struggled with various data sets, etc. They are normally totally meaningless to me. But I would like to say that for the first time in our pillar meetings, and I am pillar 2, just in case you think I don't know which one I'm in, I have found it to be really interesting and straightforward and transparent and not sort of hid in all sorts of meaningless things. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Pass that back to the team, Jessica and James. I'm sure they'll be very appreciative that finally we've made Councillor Sarah Ruiz happy.
Thank you very much. That is appreciated.
I didn't say I was happy.
Let me just have a moment. Right, okay, so colleagues, it's on big page number 721 in the very chunky Cabinet report that's before us tonight. Recommendations. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, the Mayor and the Cabinet are asked to: 1. Note the progress and achievements in our delivery of the Towards a Better NIM strategy and the corporate delivery plan as set out in Appendix 1 and in the main body of this report. 2. Note the end of year report on the Council's existing corporate and service level performance for the financial year 2020-2021 as set out in Appendix 2. 3. Agree the new NUM outcomes framework measures as set out in Appendix 3. And 4. Agree the new corporate and service specific key performance indicators which have been refreshed as set out in Appendices 4 and 5. So colleagues, do we agree? Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Shabar Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway.
Agreed, Chair.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Okay, thank you very much. That's that. Now we're going to be going to agenda item 6, which is the July Finance Review 2021 to 2022. And I'm going to be inviting Councillor Terry Paul to introduce this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And with me today is Conrad Halls, the Section 151, and Andrew Ward is the Deputy Section 151, who'll be making some concluding remarks after my remarks. So we present this report to you, and also I want to say in the outset, I thank you to the wider finance team for getting us in the position to where we are, because they've done a very good job behind the scenes in making sure we're able to get this thing done and provide a level of detail and reporting, as you can see in the Cabinet paper. This report looks at and looks back at some of the most challenging times, not only in local government, but in national or global governance, and also provides a financial picture, which is extremely challenging. This report, in a sense, can be broken down into 3. It's the Council's overall financial position, i.e. its unaudited accounts, looking at 2021 in terms of years, our current financial position and our estimates for, and also the Council's financial planning assumptions for the medium and longer term. And that's essentially what the report covers. But what I want to do is just pick some highlights for members of the Cabinet here and members of the public who are looking in. There was still a requirement, despite the challenges presented to us financially, there is still a requirement for continued financial transformation. There is still a requirement for improved financial control and also better governance. We have focused on delivering our corporate savings, but obviously there is more to do. And also, more importantly, despite these challenges, we still have to focus on service delivery to our residents, which is the key and important thing. Underpinning our work is the elephant in the room of COVID-19, which in summary has cost accounts in terms of cost and lost income of £54 million in last year. Our government support was 48. For those who are very good at quick maths, it's 5.9 was the gap between the two, which we've had to fund from ourselves and fund through our reserves, which are there for that purpose. Our current forecast going forward is 12.5 million, but I can assure Cabinet members and members of the public, myself and Conrad and Andrew and the rest of the finance team have been conducting and are conducting a series of meetings around the organisation to look at what we need to do and what we can do to restore our financial position. In summary and highlight, that's all I wanted to say. But through you, Chair, if I can invite Conrad or Andrew to add some points to the comments I've made.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Conrad. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Conrad Hall. I'm the Corporate Director of Resources and the Council's statutory Chief Finance Officer. There is very little I'd need to add to thank Councillor Paul for those kind words, and if I may, just to extend in public those thanks to the whole finance team headed up by Andrew Ward, and perhaps in particular I might mention Mania Hall and Ekbal Hussain, who have done a terrific job in bringing the Council's accounts together, which appear in Appendix 1 I appreciate it is by its nature a technical document, but it's an exceptionally important one. And having produced that a whole month ahead of the statutory deadline, 2 years ago when I joined Newham, we were 3 or 4 months behind the statutory deadline. I do think that is really an achievement that's worth placing on the public record. The accounts disclose a wealth of detail, but the key message is that the headline financial results from last year were as anticipated, and Councillor Paul has set out the overriding for that, reason for that, of course, being the impact of the pandemic. And that is carrying on into the current financial year. The latest estimates I saw from London councils put the excess of costs over government funding for the current year at somewhere in the region of an average of £10 million for the current financial year. And of course, we will continue to make the case for funding for that. However, we could not plan on the basis that government funding for that will be forthcoming. And so exactly as Councillor Paul says, myself, Althea, the Chief Executive, all members of the corporate management team, and supported, of course, by Cabinet lead members and the Mayor, will be focusing very, very hard on all the ways that we can get back to our agreed budget for the current financial year. The last thing the report tries to do is to look further ahead. Truth be told, it is very difficult to anticipate what government funding in 22, 23 or later years will look like. There's a very long delayed review and reform of local government finance, and although we stay close to officials in CLG working through the Local Government Association and London councils, at the current point in time, it's difficult to make any really robust forecasts about what that funding might look like for future years. But of course, as we move into the spending review in the autumn, much more information will be made available, and we will share that with members, with Cabinet, and indeed with the public, because all of that will be in the public domain as soon as we're reasonably able to do so. But at the current point in time, it's hard to be more precise about future years' funding. So our focus, as Councillor Paul says, is doing everything we possibly can to get back to delivering within the agreed budget for the current financial year. I'll pause at that point. Thank you. Andrew Ward is also with me. We're very happy to take questions on any of the documents.
Thank you very much, Conrad. Andrew, do you need to say anything?
Those were two very comprehensive introductions. So as Conrad said, very happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, super. Right, are there any questions from any member of the Cabinet or the Executive? I have Councillor Zulfikar Ali, then Councillor Sarah Ruiz. No, that's it for now. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Back in March 2020, I think we were so pleased we agreed a 3-year budget strategy, first time ever. But then came the COVID shock, and clearly I'd like to congratulate Councillor Paul as well as Conrad Hall and the team for managing our finances so diligently over the last 18 months or so. I know that despite the fact that the government said spend to manage the COVID situation, we haven't taken our eyes off the internal controls and the governance arrangements. And I know that a lot has been done in that regard. And I just wonder if I could get a quick sort of summary of how those actions we took in terms of internal controls and governance arrangements have actually helped deal with such a financial shocks as the COVID.
Okay, I'll just give a brief introduction, but I'll let Conrad come in. Thank you for the question. As we know, the Mayor commissioned Chris Buss about 2 years ago to do a piece of work, and that was reported to us last year. And Conrad brought a report from memory in about July of last year, which set out our internal controls challenge, and there are approximately about 10 or 11 recommendations which we've reported back. But also I say in terms of financial control, in terms of the proof point of whether we're doing well or not, as Conrad pointed out, when he joined us 2 years ago, we were 4 months behind. Now we're a month ahead of producing this particular report. And more importantly, last year, we produced our account on time, I think just over by 4 days, the audited, providing the resources, or effectively reduced our accounts on time for the first time in 7 years. And I think that's a proof point indication of our improving governance. And I say that because it will mean something for the residents. But in the more technical thing, I'll let perhaps Conrad or Andrew add some more technical flavour to my answer.
Thank you, Councillor Paul, and thank you for the question, Councillor Ali. I think what I would add to that, at the Audit Committee on the 30th of June, we received a report demonstrating the progress that's been made against all the recommendations of the Internal Control Commission. So it wasn't just a report that was sort of received, noted, and allowed to gather dust somewhere. We've been actively delivering against those recommendations and making sure that we're properly scrutinised in so doing. I think there are two immediate points I'd make about how that feeds through into the financial position. Firstly, and this was actually underway before the Internal Controls Commission reported, we now have, in line with normal practice, much clearer reporting against delivery of all of the council's agreed savings, and you can see it in the appendix to this report that demonstrates exactly where we are with all of those agreed savings, showing where they're on track, and indeed, in the challenging circumstances at the moment, where they are not on track and the action that's been taken to get them back on track. I think that's an important part of financial discipline. The other point that I'd make, the Internal Controls Commission, it is in part about the sort of wide system level things that the organisation needs to do to manage itself well, but the other part of it is what individuals do. I think it's a point that can never be made often enough, that financial discipline isn't just something that members of the cabinet do, although you do of course all do it. It's not something that just the corporate management team do, although of course we all do it. What's really key to that is this changing culture that the Internal Controls Commission for me was really about, so that every member of staff is really being careful with the public money that they're entrusted to spend. And I think we're seeing that shift starting to work its way through the organisation. We're not all the way there yet, of course we're not, and it remains the case that of course current circumstances are not normal, and that presents challenges in all sorts of ways. But I think it has been a really helpful piece of work, and again I can give that assurance that we are very consciously aware of a need to deliver on those recommendations and to make sure that there are arrangements in place to hold us to account to ensure that we do deliver on them, and it doesn't just gather dust on a shelf.
Thank you very much. Is that okay, Councillor Zulfikar? Yeah, okay. Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Thank you, Roxana. I guess, firstly, I think we probably should recognise and be proud of how we have stepped up in the last 18 months to support our communities. Communities that actually at the start of the pandemic wouldn't necessarily have seen themselves as vulnerable, but actually very quickly became very vulnerable. But there is always a stinging tail with that, of course. And I look at section 12 and 12.2 and 12.3 and look and see that if things remain and we have more people claiming council tax relief and we're not able to collect that level of council tax, what is the knock-on effect on that? Does that mean that you'll be coming again to attack our budget? Not attack, that's the wrong word, but to come again at our budgets? Will we have to be looking at making further savings? And because I just think that residents, whilst they've been in receipt of actually some first-class support, that does have a longer term effect, and I just wondered how we were going to mitigate against that.
I think it's a two-point answer, and I think the first part is to remind residents what we do to support them. And I think one of the first decisions in this role was to improve the council tax reduction scheme by approximately £2 million a year. That's one of the first things we did, and also we improved the scheme. So a household suffering financial difficulty can claim up to 90% of their council tax, depending on their personal situation. So I think that's one of the things, and one of the things about administration, but we're here to support residents, be on their side, and we have done that. And also, just to provide the context in the report, it actually sets out an additional 4,500 working age households have called upon the council tax reduction scheme in financial year 2021, and that's cost the council 3.3 million. So I think what we would always continue to do is stand behind our residents, and I think also to provide that financial support. And on the corollary, on the other side of that, it has an impact on our council tax collection. And it's also useful to say that because it does provide a context to our financial pressure. And just to highlight that, before COVID, we were collecting 96% of our council tax. Last year, it is now just about 90%. So it's gone down by 6%. I think it's very important to actually remind residents what we're doing for them, how we're supporting, and also remind the residents on let's say, the financial pressure on the budget. On the other side to that, I think, as Conrad alluded to, there is an ongoing piece of work to look at how we spend that money to be more efficient. And I think it's about reminding ourselves what those services we need to provide to residents. And it's a challenge for all of us and all directorates to make sure we do that really efficiently, really effectively, and we bear down on waste, because that enables us to have more financial resources for our residents. So I would say, to answer your question, Sarah, to remind our residents, I think the council tax scheme I just outlined is a proof point of how we're committed to our residents. It also reminds residents of the financial impact on that. But I will say it is a continual piece of work to ensure that we manage our budget, and also we continue to press the government to give us the money that we need to make up the shortfall which COVID has given us. I hope that's an answer.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, thank you very much, Terry. Are there any other questions that need or want to be asked? Someone could kindly just advise if anyone on the participants list has their hands up, because I can't see.
Yeah, there's no one on the participants list that I can see that have got their hands raised.
Okay, fine. Thanks a lot. You can close it then. Thank you. All right, just before I jump to recommendations, I think we shouldn't forget and lose sight of the other dimension of this, which is the ongoing pressure and demand from central government that we're given the money that we deserve. There's been long-standing concerns about the unfairness of the funding formula as it applies to local authorities generally, particularly in places such as Newham, where we have high levels of deprivation and rank highly in the areas of multiple deprivation. And the point that the Corporate Director for Finance and Resources made about the importance of redoubling our good governance effort and endeavour and mission as an organisation, and the responsibility that places on corporate directors and officers in the council to ensure that when we ask the questions, is the money that we're spending well spent and spent in the most optimal way, they can confidently reassure us that it is. Because I don't particularly want to be in a situation where we're needing to have a conversation around which part of the pie or the cake needs to be sliced even further in order to sustain us as a council service. And we're going to be very much challenged, of course, but we've really got to make sure that collectively as a team, as an organisation, that we redouble our efforts on being optimal and integrated in our approach to the challenges facing our residents here in the borough and how we can unlock better outputs through a optimal way of operating as an organisation. So I'm going to be moving towards the recommendations, which are set out in a moment. $890. Oh yeah, thank you. Right, so on big page number 890, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is asked to 3.1 note the draft unaudited accounts for 2020-2021 as summarised in section 4 and as set out in full in appendix 1. 3.2 note the outer report for 2020-21 as summarised in section 5 and as set out in appendix 2. 3.3 note the quarter 1 budget monitoring 2021-2022 report as summarised in section 6 and as set out in full at appendix 3. 3.4 note the reprofiling of the capital programme as the outcome of the capital review as summarised in section 7 and set out in full in appendix 4. And finally 3.5 note the intention to adhere to the planned medium-term financial strategy and reframe the budget setting process, enabling it to be used as a tool to deliver the climate emergency action plan and achieve the target of becoming a carbon net zero borough by 2030, which is pretty significant, colleagues, as well. So can I just read out names and hear your response? Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz. Agreed. Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Carlini Parkway.
Agreed, Chair.
Mayor Oksana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. Now we are going to be moving on to agenda item 7, which is homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, and I'll be inviting Councillor Zulfikar Ali as the Cabinet Lead to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say first of all that this is a great example of cross-cutting work and working across the council, where we have now produced a joint strategy with housing, which also becomes rough sleeping. And the proposal is a 5-year strategy. The council, we did agree an interim strategy back in December 19, which was updated in order to make sure that lessons that we have learned during the last month, a year or so are encompassed in there, and then we work with housing service to make sure that the strategy is more collective and we manage things in a far better way that we need to in view of the current climate. And in terms of rough sleeping, I know Councillor Mohammed will talk about the aspect, but from rough sleeping perspective, we have taken a huge leap in terms of managing the situation far better during the pandemic. We've treated people with care and compassion, and we have respected the situation they were in. Our track record in that respect is exemplary, and in fact is being used nationally as a good practice. We've developed an intelligent-led pathway which has helped us to reduce rough sleeping to single figures. You will see from this report here, which is highlighting achievements that we've made over the last 12 months or so. We have accommodated 620 rough sleepers in response to COVID. In September 2018, there were 105 rough sleepers in the borough. In November 19, that figure was 64. And in November 20, that reduced to a single figure of 6 people. And this is a remarkable achievement and a remarkable journey. And it is as a result of the additional budgetary resources we committed ourselves, irrespective of government, and also the innovative approach that our officers have developed in managing the situation in a more intelligent way, which led to this success. This strategy is a 5-year plan, and that builds on the successes that we've had over the last 12 months. And the plan has 1 year, 12 months action plan, but that action plan also has key priorities over the rest of the 4 years, so that we make sure the lessons that we learn, action that we complete in the first 12 months can actually be continued during the remaining life of the strategy. So effectively, this is a live document, and we address the issues which we are facing. And clearly, the COVID is still there, the pandemic is still ongoing, the risk factors are pretty high, so we need to make sure that we are on top of the situation. And on that basis, we are continuing to work both with Housing Service and our officers are working with the GLA, with the government departments, where we are very well recognized in terms of achievements we made. So I take this opportunity to thank our officers in adult and social care and indeed housing to work together in such a brilliant way to produce such a good strategy for the next 5 years. And that will aim to reduce homelessness as well as rough sleeping. And I commend this report, Chair, and the recommendations, and I hope that we can see further improvements over the life of the strategy in order to demonstrate that we do mean to take people's lives seriously. Thank you, Chair. I'll now ask Councillor Shaban Mohammed to add his perspective.
I'll just conclude. I agree with all the points that my councillor colleague made, and I think where we started in 2018 when we came in, and the great work that's been carried out by people in adult health, it's been really, really good. And I'm really, really pleased with the outreach team and the work done by Ajifa, where she's been really, really working hard. And, I think a lot of members here do go on our bi-monthly homeless counts, and, it just underlines the great work that we've been doing and really working hard to get our numbers down. But on the housing side of things, I think there is, with this 5-year strategy, we really want to, look at increasing hostel accommodation, increasing our assessment centres across the borough, also looking at the multi-agency approach and looking at rough sleeping in general, the employment needs, the health needs, and really working across the council to really bring this strategy forward and really make it work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Chair, if I may, have officers Colin and Darren and Ken and others here in case they wish to add anything to complement or supplement.
Thank you very much. Officer colleagues, would you like to add anything to what you've just heard, either drawing attention to particular aspects of the report or just emphasising some key features?
So Darren Levy here. Just to kind of draw attention that we're looking for approval to conduct a 10-week consultation on this strategy. Following that consultation period, we'll review the feedback and then we'll be bringing it back to Cabinet for final approval of the final document, ideally in December, to go live next year.
Thank you very much. Colin.
Thank you. Colin Ansell, Corporate Director for Adults and Health. So just to add that we will then be, I think it's outlined in the report, we will then be bringing back an action plan each year, which will reflect on what we've achieved over the last 12 months and what we'll be doing over the following 12 months. And I think that, as Councillor Rowley said, from a rough sleeping perspective, Appendix, I think it's D, outlines the journey that we've been on in terms of rough sleeping, and we will continue to do so. And we will continue with our approach, which starts with care and compassion, which is the #1 thing that we do as part of our approach to helping our most vulnerable residents. But that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Just in the interest of time and given everything else we've got to get through, I'll conclude there in terms of introduction to the paper, but open it up for questions, and then we can just draw on the expertise of other officers as required in response. So can I just check to see if there are any members? Anne, over to you.
Thank you. Just a comment, really, to ask if you were aware of the Recycling Lives UK charity in Preston. there was an article on a television programme the other day, but it was very interesting because it's well known that a job and hope for the future is a very important part of a person's, as it were, rehabilitation into the lives of most of us. But I would commend it to you because they were doing recycling of electronic things and cars and so on and so forth. So making money, but at the same time providing employment and accommodation for, I think, about 40 people at a time, and they've been through 200 of these people who've been able to go on and access other jobs because of it. So might be useful to have a look. Recycling Lives UK. It's impressive.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Annister. I mean, clearly that's it's a good one to tap into, but certainly the pathway that we've developed in rough sleeping is intelligence-led, and clearly the entire purpose of it is to make sure that we rehabilitate people to lead normal life, and we've had a good success. You know, that has led to the reduction in number, but certainly we can always pick up any of the good practice that comes through, and recycling life can look at. Thank you very much for that. I don't know whether Carl or Colin or Simon wants to add anything.
Just very quickly, just to say thank you for that, and we will definitely look at it. But and to reinforce what Councillor Ali says, that employment is a really important part of our pathway, and that's illustrated by the investment that we've made in partnering with a particular organisation called Beam, who use really sort of innovative ways of supporting people through their employment pathways. But we will definitely look at that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've just got one question, if I may. So noting the interplay between the rough sleeping team and the homelessness housing services team, and perhaps either you, Zulfikar, or Shabs, or officer colleagues can just advise whether this is the first time we've been so integrated in our approach, and how does that reflect the systems approach that we're taking to the review of rough sleeping in a way that is enabling a sustainable effort as part of ending rough sleeping in this borough, and what are some of the challenges given the quantum numbers of residents that we already have on the housing waiting lists, the constraints with regards to housing, both in terms of council stock, but also within the private rented sector. So how will this strategy, one, deal with rough sleeping in the context of a sustainability approach, but also contend with the broader challenges of a landscape that remains very difficult because of issues of affordability and cost? Colin? Darren?
Yeah, sure. I was just seeing who was going to start first minute. Sorry. Yeah, so I think in terms of just taking the question, in terms of the link up, and is this the most integrated that we've worked on something like this, the answer to that is yes. I think that with the work that we've done across both services, we've taken a holistic view of both homelessness and rough sleeping, because they do interchange with one another at certain points, not on everything that happens, but they do. And I think it's very important as part of the work that Candida and Darren have set out in the draft strategy, that we continue with that work. So it's very important that not only do we get people off the streets and work with them around both their sort of medical issues and their mental health, but actually give them sustainable long-term accommodation, which is linked into ongoing support over the longer term, because otherwise you end up in a situation whereby people are just going back onto the street because they're going back into crisis. So I actually think that the way that we've worked has allowed a lot more fostering of that integrated approach to come through. And I hope that is shown in the strategy that's been drafted. I think in terms of the accommodation, I would probably ask Darren to sort of come in on the wider homelessness point, but certainly from a rough sleeping point of view, we recently agreed, Cabinet agreed to the purchase of Lady Helen Seymour House, which is an accommodation within itself, which will see multiple units for people as we bring them off the street and then put them into a long-term pathway that will put them on their route to sustainable accommodation, and much the same as part of the integrated rough sleeping service that was agreed at Cabinet also recently. So all of this is put together to bring that integrated approach together from across council services as a one council approach.
Thank you very much. Darren?
Yeah, I guess just to reaffirm that the premise of this approach to homelessness is a whole council approach. So we're working very closely with public health colleagues, working very closely with people from children's services, and looking at the whole journey of homelessness, not just people who are street homeless, but looking at how we can prevent people from rough sleeping, looking at that whole journey from the point at which they contact the council through to working with our private sector landlord colleagues to maximise the number of opportunities of moving people into the private sector. So that, this strategy represents a whole council approach to homelessness in its widest sense, rather than just a approach by single service areas. And I think that's what will create the step change over the next few years.
All right, thank you very much. And just a quick follow-up question, and perhaps Khadija, you can answer this, or maybe Shaban. So that whole council approach obviously is predicated on a system that is fluid, agile, fully integrated, and different parts of the council kind of get where we need to get to and is on the same page. What are the potential impediments to that? Because I know that you're also needing to address the wider homelessness piece as part of our broader housing strategy.
Sorry, shall I attempt to answer that? So I'm Candida Thompson, and I'm Assistant Director of Housing Options and Supply. So what we've done with this strategy is there are kind of 6 key priorities to it, and one of those priorities is adopting a partnership approach to preventing homelessness and improving well-being. So the action plan is very much built around that as well. And the action plan is a kind of multi-service steering group leading that, and sort of reading across all of the council's priorities, all of our sort of strategies, and what we're working towards to make sure that they're all kind of focused towards preventing homelessness and improving well-being. So we built in kind of structures and regular meetings and kind of reviews of the action plans as we go along to try and ensure that that kind of whole systems, whole council approach is kind of integrated into our sort of on focus on prevention, basically. What barriers we will have, obviously, are there are a lot of external factors that will affect our demand and how we can respond, not least the sort of economic climate that we're looking at the moment. And obviously we will have those kind of operational difficulties that we all face at some points, but I think that the will is very much there. People are behind what we're trying to do, and we're all sort of committed to it. And we've tried as much as we can to kind of put those structures in place to make sure that is a dynamic thing going forward. I don't know if Carl or Simon might want to say something.
Carl, Simon?
No, I think Candida covered that really well. Thank you, Candida.
Okay, super. Right, we're going to move to the recommendations unless the two cabinet members wish to add anything. All right, super. Thank you very much, and well done, everyone. Really impressive piece of work. So, going to the recommendations. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to 2.1.1 note the proposed 5-year strategy key outlined priorities set out in section 4.6 of the report. Approve the detailed, 2.1.2, approve the detailed first year action plan, which will be renewed annually. 2.1.3, agree to officers conducting a 10-week consultation exercise with key stakeholders and residents on the attached draft homelessness and rough sleeping strategy appendix 1, and 2.1.4 note that December 2021 following consultation a further report will be brought to Cabinet to take into account the outcome of the consultation process and consider approval of a proposed final version of the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. Is that agreed, colleagues? Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway.
Agreed.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much, officer colleagues. Well done, cabinet members, on this piece. Right, now we're going to be moving to a neat segue and follow-up to the previous agenda item on homelessness and rough sleeping. Housing allocations policy review as a next agenda item 8, and this is set out pages 469 to 8. I'll invite the cabinet member lead, Councillor Shaban, to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to introduce this paper, which sets out the final proposals for the new housing allocation policy. Members, please note that the last time this policy was reviewed, it was almost 9 years ago. As colleagues will know, Newham is at the sharp end of the housing crisis, with 49% of households in poverty, with housing taking into account 25% of households living in overcrowded accommodation, and the private sector rents are becoming increasingly unaffordable, and they rise faster than incomes. Rents for one-bedroom flat in Newham now cost 44.4% of the median income, and well over 33% of that is considered unsustainable. Building more social housing is part of the solution, and we are on track to deliver over 1,000 new low-cost rented properties by May 22. The allocations policy is the side of the coin, and it's an important tool for ensuring that the limited supply of social housing goes to those most in need. Members will also know that we have a limited amount of social housing. We need to make sure that it goes to those most in need, and this policy change will allow the council to focus on the health need and overcrowding. Members will also remember that we brought this paper back into Cabinet in September 2020, requesting permission to consult some proposed changes to the existing policy. We had over 2,600 responses to the consultation, which ran from October 2020 to January 2021. And the officers have been considering that feedback and developing the proposals since. At Cabinet, during the first, we asked members to agree the proposals, noting the results of the consultation. What we must understand that this administration is putting people at the heart of everything we do, and our housing services is driving that message. So I was going to give it to Darren or Emma if they've got any other remarks they want to make.
Darren?
Nothing more from me. I think just to point out, we're looking for approval for the 4 key changes to be approved that we consulted on. We've got a programme of communications that which will be implemented sort of following the call-off period, which will also include a booklet that will go to everybody on the housing register, just explaining the changes, and then we'll be delivering a programme of communication with individuals on how it impacts on them, and also a sort of wider communication piece. We're also reviewing the policy document in totality and looking for delegated authority just to approve any sort of refinements that we make to that policy document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emma, is there anything else that you'd like to add? No? Or Donna? No? All right, super. Questions, colleagues? Any questions? Sarah?
Comment rather than question. I'm really pleased to see that you have got the leaving carers in item 6.10. And I just think that we need to have perhaps a greater understanding of their need than we currently have. So I would ask, and I know that Councillor Shaban and I have been having conversations about it, but it's great that it's in here, but we actually need to be doing a little bit better than we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that noted? Yeah?
Noted.
Sorry. Okay, cool.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
Because what I was going to actually say, I agree with Sarah, and I think, I know there's a need, but I think, again, young people, and it's the year of the young people, and I think we need to really drive that message. So I think it's one of the areas that we are quite weak on, and we need to really drive it forward. So I agree with my colleague, and I'm looking forward to working with her to look at the needs of our care leavers and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherbs.
Thank you very much. Okay, so unless there are any other questions, I can't see. Right, we're going to be going to the recommendations as set out on big page number 470. 2.1.1, note the results of the consultation set out in Appendix 3. 2.1.2, approve the proposed changes to the Council's housing allocations policy as set out at paragraphs 4.8 to 4.28 below. 2.1.3, note the draft policy at Appendix 1 even, incorporating the proposed changes, and that this document will be further developed by officers prior to implementation. 2.1.4, delegate authority to the Director of Housing in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing Services to approve the final allocations policy to be implemented and to agree any minor legal and technical changes required ahead of implementation. And then finally, 2.1.5, delegate authority to the Director of Housing in consultation with Cabinet Member for Housing Services to agree some minor changes to the allocations policy. So, colleagues, is that agreed? Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway.
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. Well done, everyone involved in that. So we've now got agenda item 9, which is the street property roofing programme, pages 629 to 634. And I'm going to be inviting, I think it's Councillor Shaban Mohammed to introduce it over to you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. This is the final piece of the jigsaw in our investment in our existing stock. I think this is one of the, I think over the last couple of cabinets, we've got £45 million investment programme in our housing stock, and I think this is one of the biggest investments in our stock in a generation. This report requests the authority to prepare and tender a contract for the replacement of 281 roof coverings, pitched and flat roof with council-owned properties. The need to complete the work was identified following a stock condition inspection with information held on the Keystone Asset Management Database. This is essential maintenance work to maintain the fabric of the building and ensure that our homes are wind and weather tight. Leaseholder properties are not included in this contractual programme. Procurement will be in a way of a mini competition using the London Housing Corporation's roof works framework Superlop. The value of the contract is estimated to be in the region of £4.5 million, and the contract will run for 2 years. Work with work funded from the Housing Revenue Account capital budget, capital programme budget. As a part of the additional works, loft and roof insulation will be provided where it is necessary to improve the energy performance of the properties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so colleagues, are there any questions pertaining to this agenda item? I can't see any. Sorry, Dave Hughes, if you want to say anything about this?
Only to say, Chair, that obviously this is 4.5 million. It's the modest contract. As Councillor Shaban says, it's part of a much wider commitment to investing in our existing stock. So I don't want it recorded. This is our largest capital programme. It's just one small project in that wider programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, so colleagues, I'm going to jump straight into recommendations as set out on big page number 629. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree 2.1.1 to procure a contract to undertake a roof replacement programme by way of Housing Corporation's Roof Works Framework Mixed Roofing Super Lot, followed by a mini competition to commence on the 4th of January 2022 for a term of 2 years at a maximum value of 4.5 million, and 2.1.2 to delegate authorities to the Director of Housing in consultation with the Mayor and the Cabinet Member for Housing Services to award the final contract subject to the value of the tender falling within the above budgetary envelope. Sorry, can I just clarify? I have had nothing to do with this paper, so why am I being referred to? Because this is Housing Services. I mean, I don't mind, but it's always good to have two eyes, but just for clarification.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. This is in Councillor Shabab Mohammed's portfolio.
Yeah. Okay. So, are you agreeable to me being consulted with you?
We're all part of a team, so
Fine. All right. So we'll keep the recommendations. Okay. Fine. So, Councillor Carly Parkway, do you agree?
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Okay, thank you very much. So that's that. And we're now going to be jumping on to agenda item 10, which is the Young People and Food Security Strategy. Over to you, Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is yet another example of cross-directorate working, which has been a really enjoyable task and finish group. It not only included officers from across the council, but also our partners in the voluntary community and faith sector, and in our schools, and in our, I don't know, Juniper, our whatever that's called, external business. Is that what it's called, Darren? Yeah, okay. So the Young People and Food Security Strategy is part of a series of actions to address poverty and inequality in Newham as part of its community wealth building, inclusive economy and towards a better Newham agendas being pursued by this administration. In January, Mayor Fiaz announced the launch of a task and finish group to look at food poverty facing children and young people in the borough, and building on a raft of measures put in place to support Newham children and families during the COVID-19 pandemic, valued as an estimated 6 million to date. The initiative is addressing the impact of food poverty facing our young people in the borough, including holiday hunger. We're building on the principles of healthy eating as part of the council's 50 steps to a healthier Newham, and reducing food waste, which is integral to Newham's climate emergency response, and is supported by the Health Foundation, the UK's leading health promotion charity. The Young People and Food Security Strategy has been informed by many conversations with children, young people and their families, to map the scale of food security challenges facing low-income households. It builds on the £6 million annual investment guaranteed by the Mayor in January 21 through the Council's Eat for Free programme, which supports the health and well-being of all nursery and primary school children in Newham, regardless of their background. In Newham, as across the UK, there are residents struggling to afford enough food to live a healthy and happy life. We know that poverty is the primary cause of food insecurity, and we know that food is essential to life. That's why our community wealth building, inclusive economy, and towards a better Newham strategies are fundamentally about tackling poverty and inequality in Newham. And that is why, as part of a series of interventions to tackle poverty, we are addressing the scourge of food insecurity head on. While we have acted to address the immediate pressing issue of food insecurity facing our most vulnerable households, we recognise that food insecurity has been a long-standing issue in Newham and that has been allowed to exist for too long. By putting health and well-being at the heart of our Towards a Better Newham recovery plan, our primary measure of economic success, we are driving an agenda that will ensure everyone in Newham is food secure. I'd like to commend this report and also at the same time offer my thanks to the whole of the Task and Finish group, because I think it's been a really positive experience. So thank you all of the team, some of which are here tonight.
Thank you very much.
James, I think, are here. Brooks.
Brilliant. Heather, James, would you like to add anything before we just open up to any questions?
Thank you. I just really wanted to add that the strategy is really very much needed at this time, as Councillor Ruiz has said, and the approach that we are taking is to make sure that we are not only supporting individuals and families, but that we are also making sure that settings support food security and that we create the environments that support food security. So this is very much about short, medium and long-term approach. And I think the strategy sets out that in real detail. And I think that this will really make a huge difference to our young people and our families in Newham. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much. I'm going to just see if there are any questions. I've got Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Thank you, Chair. Can I commend Councillor Sarah Ruiz and officers for this excellent strategy report that not only looks across the council for a production of this very, very difficult piece of work for our young people. Young people are our assets, and we do have a very high percentage of young people. Therefore, anything that this strategy will do is to make sure that it achieves the objective that we need to set out. Can I also say that this is another exemplary work, frankly, because not only do we work across the council, we've also engaged our partners and private voluntary sector as well. So it's a collective effort. I would say it's a co-produced, it's an excellent example of co-production really in that spirit. And more importantly, it not only focuses on people or departments or input from relevant people, but actually entire strategies across the council. You know, Sarah mentioned the health and well-being strategy, the 50 steps, the pillars, you know, and the economic development work that we've been doing and everything else. So it's whole encompassing strategy really, which I think is a great piece of work. So I really congratulate officers who work extremely hard across the board, which is, in my view, a big cultural shift and mindset in this authority, which is greatly welcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anne Easton.
Thank you. I worked as part of this group, and as Councillor Ruiz says, it was a really interesting and positive group to work with. And thank you to all my colleagues who were part of it. I think one important thing we did was to try to see the whole scale of the problem, the issue. We looked at the thing as a whole, not just in small pockets. And I think that was very important. And the second thing is, I think the move from food bank to food club or food pantry or whatever people are going to call it, just so happens that in other spheres, I'm involved with 2 such organisations, such projects perhaps, and it's clear to see that people value the possibility of making it more holistic. So instead of just giving people food, we're actually going to encourage them to eat together. We're going to encourage them to learn about cooking and choosing good food and how to prepare it and all those things. And I can see that they already value that broadening of the offer. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add something to that?
Of course.
Because actually what was really clear when we were doing this piece of work was the significant number of families that are living just on the edge. So I would say just about managing, but actually they are really on the edge. And I think that they, above all others, value the move from food banks to a food pantry or food club, because it's about pride. So even if they can only contribute £1 or £2, it doesn't feel so much as if it's like so bad. And the other, I think, was significant was the number of food deserts around the borough. So, and I will just pick on Custom House because that's the ward I represent. In Freemasons Road, we have a Nisa supermarket that must buy their veg probably 3 weeks after the sell-by date. And the rest of the shops are all takeaways. So there's a Chinese, there's 3 chicken and chip and fish and chip shops. And actually we need to change the mix in our high streets. Yeah. So if you look at just even somewhere like Forest Gate where I live, from in a very small stretch of road, there are 32 fast food outlets. Mm. And it is no surprise that a lot of our chicken and chip shops, and I use that term generically, are around our secondary schools. Mm. And we need to be doing something to change the culture of our eating habits in our secondary schools, so they're no longer allowed out at lunchtime. But what that means is instead of eating in school, they come out and they can buy chicken chips for 99 pence or £1.99. And we need to start changing the way in which children and young people view fast food. Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you very much. Unless there are any other questions from Cabinet colleagues or anyone else, I will.
Chair, sorry, Councillor Lofthouse has got a virtual hand raised.
Oh, okay, fine. What would be really helpful, just going forward, if you're able to see the virtual hands up, could you just drop me an email so I can pick them up? Yeah?
Of course, we'll do.
Thank you. Jane, apologies for that.
Oh, that's all right, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, I think the work that's gone into this report really is welcome, very impressive. I was just going to ask, though, that Councillor Ruiz referred to holiday hunger. So I wondered if she might elaborate on what's happening over the summer for young people.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Yeah, well, there's, so since last March, when we were thrown into the pandemic, all our children and young people who are entitled to a free school meal, don't confuse that with Eat for Free, have received either food vouchers or food packs, so that over the holiday periods, plus referrals to the Newham Food Alliance. So that will continue over this summer as well, although only for 4 weeks out of the 6 weeks. But we are really pleased that we have been able to include families who have no recourse to public funds, who would not normally be included in a scheme like this, but the government have relented. If we add to that, that 23 of our secondary schools out of 25 are going to be doing 2 weeks of what is called curriculum catch-up, and that also will include, that's for year 6s and year 7s only, but that also includes a hot meal. And then we have a raft of providers who will hopefully, it will cover most of the 6 weeks holidays, who will be providing holiday activities, a combination of fun schemes and some curriculum catch up, and all of them will be providing hot food in the middle of the day. So I think it's probably on the council's website now, but that is going to be delivered through some primary schools, our youth empowerment service, and our voluntary community and faith sector. So there's a whole raft of activities, mostly in person, I have to say, but just please look at the website because it's all on there, and it's a really extensive summer programme, and we should be really proud of actually what is being delivered over the summer holidays.
Thank you very much. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to take any more comments or questions, if that's okay. Thank you very much for that, Jane. Is that okay for you? Yep, brilliant.
Thank you, yes.
Good.
Thank you.
So we're going to be just going on to the recommendations on page 30. So if you can just note recommendation 2.2, 2.1, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to 2.2, agree the young people and food security strategy as set out in Appendix 1. 2.3, delegate authority to the Corporate Director for Brighter Futures in consultation with the Mayor and the Cabinet Member for Children's Social Care and Education to approve any minor legal and technical changes required prior to publication. And 2.4, delegate authority to the Corporate Director for Brighter Futures in consultation with the Housing and Wellbeing Board to develop and publish updates to the young people and food security strategy as required as the Council continues to support recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. Sorry, it's just a bit confusing. 2.4. If you're going to publish annual updates, why would then one say as required? Are you going to be publishing annual updates, or is it just annual updates as required? Am I unclear?
I think you're probably right. It is annual updates, not as required.
Okay, so Joy, can you just delete the following after the word strategy on the 4th line of recommendation 2.4, comma, as required, comma, just delete those?
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, or just make a note that those. So 2.4 as amended. Okay, colleagues. Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway. Agreed. Councillor Shabar Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Cherry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Charlie McLean.
Agreed.
Roxana Fiaz Mir agrees as well. Thank you very much. Right, now we're going to be jumping on to Stratford Youth Zone permission authority to tender for services. And this is on big page number 671. Over to Carly Lee Parkway.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, this paper before you this evening is asking for permission to tender for a specialised creative sector provider. I would like to provide some contents for these, for those that are watching at home. As an administration, our priority is to support children and young people's aspiration, keep them safe and remove barriers to success. As part of an agenda of making Newham the best place for a child and young person to grow up and reach their potential. We have invested a significant sum totaling 43 million into children's services and Brighter Futures directives over the last 3 years. This includes 19 million for youth empowerment provision, bucking a national trend of disinvestment, which has enabled the expansion of youth workers in the borough from 3 full-time workers in May 2018 to 43 youth workers. It is a reflection of the council's corporate plan that has a specific commitment to develop a high-quality co-produced youth offer that provides a varied and inclusive range of activities for children and young people aged between the ages of 9 to 19 and up to 25 for those young people that have special education needs and disabilities. In the policy documents Towards a Better Newham and the action plan, which is the council's recovery strategy in relation to the pandemic, it sets out in Pillar 2, the council will ensure every resident under 25 is safe, happy and cared for, with positive activities to secure their long-term well-being, reinforcing the administration's commitment to young people of the borough who have been deeply impacted by the pandemic. Through the Youth Empowerment Service, the London Borough of Newham's Youth Zones provides an exemplary universal youth provision offer where all young people, no matter their needs, are nurtured, positively challenged and empowered to be confident, make informed choices, reach their potential and feel safe as they navigate their life journey in Newham. In line with the manifesto commitment to double the number of youth zones in the borough, Cabinet agreed on the 3rd of March 2020 to support this commitment and allow a further expansion of the Youth Empowerment Service to commence from April 2020, costing 1.2 million, which we allow for increasing the services work with children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities and expanding the youth zone provision in the following areas: Stratford Youth Zone, East Ham Youth Zone, Plaistow and Green Street Youth Zone, North Woolwich and Silvertown Youth Zone, and the Special Education Needs Disabilities, which is borough-wide. These models are through physical spaces and detached work in neighbourhoods where young people gather. Mayor Fiaz announced that the Stratford Circus building, located in the heart of Newham's major metropolitan district and owned by the council, would be repurposed as a flagship youth zone for the young people of the borough. Additionally, it was announced that the Stratford Youth Hub would deliver a high quality and exemplary universal social and emotional learning youth offer. This provides a foundation that means that over time, our young people can transfer their learning to achieve more positive outcomes and future jobs, education, and better and healthier lives for themselves, their families, and their communities. The placement of the new youth zone provides an opportunity for the council to procure the work within a specialised creative sector provider to grow this cultural offer and opportunities for young people in Newham. This proposal to significantly invest in the youth provision in Newham signifies further that the previous pattern of disinvestment is over and we are righting those wrongs. This building upon the substantial shift in favour in investing in our young people already demonstrates since the election of this mayor and administration and embedded through our unique dedicated Brighter Futures Directorate. This year is dedicated to our ambition through the Newham's Year of the Young Person. All of our young people in Newham deserve nothing less than first-class services, irrespective of where they live. The proposal sets out in this paper will help this significantly deliver that. I would like to commend this report to Cabinet, and I also have Geetha, Matt and Lynn who may want to add some additional information or answer any technical questions.
Thank you very much, Carleen. So do I have any questions from any colleagues? I've got one question from Councillor Anne East.
Can you say, please, Councillor Lee Parkway, how you see this particular procurement supporting the youth services to develop our much-needed flagship youth zone, which I'm really looking forward to in Stratford?
Thank you.
I want to go.
You're more than welcome to go along.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anista. The Youth Hub is a flagship, and the priority is to have safe spaces with trusted adults. So that it will make sure that young people have opportunities to engage in a wide range of activities, and a programme that they wouldn't normally engage with. We will also allow for young people to be able to enhance their experience by making sure that they are engaged in the arts, theatre and culture aspect, which actually for some young people, they don't have the opportunity to do so. So by having this offer in the youth zone, hopefully what it would do is allow young people to really immerse themselves in that experience, and that ultimately will give them more life chances.
Sure. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just checking. I haven't had an email come through of anyone else on the chat that wants to ask a question. So, no, so I'm not chat on the Zoom screen. Okay, fine. Let's jump straight into the recommendations on big page number 674. For the reasons set out in the report, Cabinet is recommended to agree to the commencement of a tender process to procure a provider to operate and manage Stratford Youth Zone for a period of 10 years with an option to extend for 5 years at an estimated contract value of £200,000 per annum, equating to circa £2 million over a 10-year contract period. So, colleagues, can you advise if you agree or not? Councillor Charlene McLean.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckett.
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz. Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Colleen Lee Parkway.
Agreed.
And myself, Mayor Biars, agrees. So that's been approved. So well done and congratulations to the team, and well done, Colleen and officers. Right, we're now going to be going to agenda item 12, which is improving resident experience, senior management review. This is Councillor Terry Paul.
Yes, me. Thank you, Chair. This report, in summary, is about improving the experience of residents when they come into contact with the council in delivery of services. As we know, with modern communications as they are, there are many fragmented emails, phone, text, letter. And this is a key element of our administration's desire to improve the experience for residents, and also, as we often say, to put them at the heart of our delivery of our services. We do have a fragmented approach at the moment, which is common with other councils, and what we want to do is get ahead of that and create a senior level champion for residents' voice across the council, and to ensure, more importantly, a consistency of service and offer to residents. This paper sets out plans to recruit that new director level post. One of their first tasks will be to lead and implement a full review of the residents and that council interaction. And this new director will sit in the People, Policy and Performance Directorate. Improvements have been made, and I will say that, especially in how we contact and deal with residents, and also how we deal with stage 1 complaints and that whole official complaints process. But there's still more work to do, and further transformation and change is required. As you see from the report, there are 6 work streams identified of how we can improve the experience. And as you can see, some work has been done on setting out the landscape for change, which the director will be doing. Also linked to the report, as we'll see, there are some savings which we aim to gather, and that is a review of the council contact centre and the council tax and benefit service, and also efficiencies which we'll get from the council tax contact centre. I have Jessica Crowe, who's Director for People, Policy and Performance, is there to answer any questions from yourself and any cabinet members.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the cabinet have any questions? Councillor.
Chair, my question is, what assurance can you provide that this new system will make the differences that you've raised in the report?
Good question. I will say it has to deliver for us in terms of the fragmentation. Even as us, we are residents of the borough. If you contact the borough, there's a lack of consistency and how we manage that communication. But also, more importantly, if you look in the report, James, I did allude to it. We've done some pre-work in looking at the scope of what the challenge is. If you look at the work streams identified, there's a lot more to that. But in summary, we have done the work, and I think what I would do actually is reflect on that and see what we could put specific timelines on that. So we've got the work streams, but maybe in that report there might be some specific timelines we can draw out. So let me take that away as an action, and Jessica's here listening. That will certainly see what more we can do on that. Thank you.
Yes, are you happy with that? All right, super. I can't see any more questions. Right, so I'm going to just go straight to recommendations. Sorry, forgive me, I'm just working through two big documents. 877. On big page number 877, which is on the second chunk.
8.0.
Is it? Right, got it. Okay, so I've got recommendations on big page number 878 for the. Let me just check. Yeah. 87, big page number 878. For the reasons set out in the report, Cabinet is recommended to 2.1.1 approve the creation of a permanent director post within the People Policy and Performance Directorate, namely Director of Resident Experience, and 2.1.2 note the progress in taking forward the project to improve residents' experience of council services and to deliver £500,000 medium-term financial strategy savings across council tax and benefit customer services. Is that agreed? Councillor Charlene McLean?
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles?
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul?
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz? Agreed. Councillor Shaban Mohammed?
Agreed.
Councillor Carly Nee Parkway?
Agreed.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Right, now we're going to be jumping onto the affordable homes for Newham cabinet paper pertaining to Hartley Centre, and that's pages 221 to 234. So colleagues, just really to summarise, this is key, this cabinet paper relates to a key site within the wider affordable homes programme, which, as you're aware, is the delivery programme for the manifesto commitment relating to 1,000 homes at social rent levels to be started by the end of the first term. This particular site will be providing 75 homes towards that target. What's significant about these homes are that they are specifically designed to provide modern, high quality, high design accommodation for older residents, that is those aged 55 and over, and providing opportunity for residents presently under occupying council homes that they may be residing in to vacate and free those up for larger size families. So it's an integral part of our wider housing strategy objectives and missions. The other unique feature of this particular scheme is that it will be providing a new health centre under the auspices of the partnership that the council has with our local health partners, the Health and Care Space Newham, and then approval is being sought this evening for the council as a developer of the scheme. Approval is being sought by the council as developer of the scheme and not as a joint venture. So just to be clear, notwithstanding the comments that I've made about the health centre, they're not the primary vehicle for seeking cabinet approval. So this scheme itself is being managed, delivered by Poplo on behalf of the council, Poplo Living being our housing delivery vehicle. And in essence, there are a number of recommendations across 5 key areas. So the paper is requiring us to make a direct award of a contract for development management services to Poplar Living, and this will enable the delivery of the council to progress with this contract so it meets the required deadlines, and then to approve the funding of the building contract, which will be up to circa £25.5 million of ongoing funding agreements. So basically, we're effectively transferring the cost of the build contract to the contractor via Poplar. And then, in addition, to note the total budget for this scheme of around £30 million within the overall Affordable Homes for Newham programme budget, and to approve the council entering into agreement for lease with the Health and Care Space Newham Limited in accordance to draft heads of terms. And then finally, to just really prepare the site for planning application purposes, and then to ensure once that's achieved, subject to planning committee approval, the site is delivering on the housing requirements as set out. So I'm going to just conclude there, and please kindly note that there are some exempt papers attached to this. Sorry, there are exempt appendices attached to this paper. So if anyone wishes to ask a question relating to those exempt appendices, we're going to have to exclude the press and the public. And if there are any specific questions that are more appropriate for Dave Hughes to answer, I'll invite him in. Are there any questions, anyone? Nope. Carly.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question. I want to just make a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
This scheme is a really impressive scheme, and actually does something that we haven't thought about previously. The last 12 to 16 months have been quite difficult for some of our residents, especially those of the older generations that have been isolated and lonely within their properties. I remember going out on as a councillor, going out to our residents just to check if they were okay, and there were so many residents that weren't okay because they were isolated. So I'm really quite encouraged by the thought that has been put into this project in relation to what it will deliver for those of our older generations. And I'm really encouraged to see some of the aspects of it, for instance, the keeping of the health centre within the space, which will help the residents to access services more efficiently, effectively and quickly. So yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity just to thank you yourself and your officers for thinking outside of the box and actually providing something that's actually quite future-proof for our residents. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And no doubt Dave will convey that back to the wider team. Right, so I can't see any other questions. I'm going to suggest that we just go straight into recommendations, which are on big page number 221. And recommendations, I'm not going to read them all out because it's 15 minutes. Probably bored of my voice. So these are the recommendations spanning 2.1 all the way through to 2.1.6 and associated, covering pages page 223 to 224. So I'm seeking approval of all those recommendations. Councillor Charlene McLean?
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles?
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul?
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz?
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed?
Agreed.
Councillor Carly Parkway?
Agreed.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. Now we're going to be moving on to another significant paper relating to housing delivery, and this is the cabinet report concerning the Carpenters Estate Programme, which, as you know, back in 2018 we, as a cabinet, agreed and formally approved the ending of the joint venture proposal that was being pursued by the then council with regards to the Carpenters estate. And you will be aware that since that point, circa November 2018, we've been doing a huge amount of heavy lifting to rebuild the trusts that have been broken with regards to the resident community that have lived on that estate for a considerable period of time and their experience of the council. We made a promise that we would be responsive and would be involving in our future plans that we would be driving as a local authority under the auspices of this administration to meet the manifesto commitment that we would end the joint venture, but also commence with a regeneration and restoration scheme on the estate that would lead to a minimum 50% of homes at social rent levels. It's been an absolutely Herculean task of many teams across different parts of the council, and the mobilisation of everything that we do well with regards to community involvement in working with the community in the various stages of the process, and that has commenced in earnest since November 2018 and accelerated following the cabinet decision to end the joint venture proposition in December 2018 as well. So this report provides an update signalling another major milestone of this administration as it pertains to Carpenters estate. And you'll all be aware there have been many reports coming to Cabinet about Carpenters estate, really a demonstration and symbolic of our commitment to really motor on and deliver on the promises that we were not simply going to sit on a site and let it deteriorate, but we were going to help revive a really vital part of our neighbourhood in a significant part of the borough. So the Carpenters estate, as you all know, is one of the most ambitious estate regeneration restoration programmes anywhere in London or dare I say the country. And it's one of the most ambitious estate schemes that we've pursued as a council for at least 30 years. And the paper sets out a series of important steps that we are going to need to undertake in order to get to the next major milestone of the programme, and that relates to the residents' ballots and also the landlord offer that we will be proposing to residents that live on the estate, be they council tenants or be they leaseholders. So I wanted to just really conclude by saying that, it's a really weighty, meaty document, but it really is a demonstration of the incredible and monumental work that's been undertaken by the council team, but significantly led by the Popular Living team in their development management provision on this scheme. And it has been, I would say, first class and exemplary. We have amongst the best architect design team anywhere in the country working on this scheme. We have a vision that's bold, but is involving and not marginalising of an existing community that has had long roots in the area. And we have an ambition to transform the Carpenters estate into an exciting, vibrant, sustainable, high quality, genuinely affordable area for Newham residents. So I'm going to take any questions. Apologies, officer colleagues, we're a bit pressed for time, so I'm not going to be reaching out to officers unless there's a direct request for information. Are there any? Charlene.
Thank you, Chair. I know we're pressed for time, so it's more a comment than a question. And just once again, to congratulate you and to say well done on this. It's been a long time coming. It's another step forward to the, ending the plight of the carpenters' residents. And yeah, well done. And looking forward to seeing what the results of the ballot are. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Sarah?
Just a comment, not a question. Just in case there are any residents from Custom House tuning in on this, I would really just like to make sure that they understand that this is the landlord offer for carpenters. In no way does it stop the discussions and the co-production on the landlord offer for Custom House. It isn't set in stone, and there are going to be lots of workshops to actually co-produce the landlord offer for Custom House. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and point well made. So colleagues, unless there are any other really pressing questions as opposed to comments, I'm going to suggest that we move to the recommendations, which are listed and set out on big page number 237, going on to big page number 238. That spans 2.1 all the way through to 2.8. I'm going to be seeking your agreement approval. Councillor Shani McLean.
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed.
Councillor James Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Cherry Paul.
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Jane Bruce.
Agreed.
Councillor Shabal Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway.
Agreed.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. That's been approved. Now we're going to be going into apologies, colleagues. You're going to be hearing from me for a little while longer. This is cabinet paper on the local development scheme 2021 and an update on planning policy constraints. So this basically seeks cabinet agreement to approve the updated local development scheme. It's a statutory document which outlines a timetable for reviewing and updating planning documents. And foremost within this timetable is the local plan, which is really fundamental because it's all about the way in which we will, one, meet our required housing delivery targets as set by the Mayor of London under the auspices of the London plan, but also meet the requirements more broadly in terms of national housing targets that are set by UK government and then transferred downwards to the regional authorities, the London plan, but also the importance of refreshing our own local plan so that it's fit for purpose to meet the ambitions and the opportunities that exist and are emerging and come into this borough, but critically that we are well placed in planning policy terms to appropriately approach our place making of the borough and how we envisage our neighbourhoods and the places that we live in line with our Towards a Better Nome recovery and reorientation strategy. I'm particularly thinking about pillar relating to 15-minute neighbourhoods. So it's a really fundamental document, and it includes a whole raft of really interesting detail, and it also includes sections relating to updating the local development scheme and any supplementary planning documents as it pertains to conservation matters and conservation area design guides for the conservation area called a Durham Conservation Area, which is part of its conservation management plan. Right, I'm going to conclude there, unless there are any really pressing questions. Question or comment?
Question, please.
Sure?
Sure.
Quick one. Carleen, over to you.
I did hear you mention it in your introductory speech, but I guess maybe I'm asking the officers just to elaborate. How will this enable the recovery and reorientation strategy in relation to the 15-minute neighbourhoods?
Thank you very much. Really good question. Ellie, Dave, you've got 1 minute between you.
Don't need 1 minute. Oh, right, between us. Sorry, Dave Hughes, Corporate Director, Inclusive Economy and Housing. Obviously, this is a statutory document kicking off the process, but as you know, we're fully engaging with all communities, particularly through the citizens groups, to look at how we can actually put new planning policies in place, mainly to reflect our requirements to hit housing targets, but also, just as importantly, planning for a COVID world, how we actually want our open spaces, how we want our urban landscapes to actually look in a post-COVID world. And key part of that is going to be the importance of the 15-minute neighbourhoods. So the sort of details we might look at is the types of uses and facilities that we actually put in the local shopping areas, and not have restrictive policies that maybe say you can't have a chemist there or a doctor's there. It's got to be in this hierarchy in a district centre. We might say no, it's more appropriate to have those local facilities actually in a high street closer to where people need them, and make it easier for them to commute to those uses and not have to worry about travelling further afield for uses that currently are restricted in planning. Don't know, we've got Jane and Director of Planning on the line, along with Ellie, who's leading on planning policy. Do you want to add anything briefly?
No, just to say, obviously earlier today we had a very interesting conversation about food deserts, and also areas where we've got concentrations of uses that we'd rather have a greater variety in our high streets. And it's issues like that where planning policy can support looking across our borough at where we've got deserts of various uses and where we've got over concentrations of others, and helping to reduce over concentrations and improve access to residents for all of the facilities that they need to live good quality lives. And that's how the local plan will help embed 15-minute neighbourhoods.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Is that a satisfactory and comprehensive response?
Yeah.
Thank you, fine. Right, let's just jump straight into the recommendations, which are on, 1 second, just give me a moment.
363.
363, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, 636.
That's a confusion.
1 second, colleagues, apologies. Yeah, okay, so recommendations are set out on page 636, so that covers 3.1 all the way through to 3.1.4. So can I take Councillor Charlie McLean?
Agreed.
Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed, Chair.
James Beckles?
Agreed.
Terry Paul?
Agreed.
Sarah Ruiz? Agreed. Jabbar Mohammed?
Agreed.
Colin Lee Parkway?
Agreed.
Roxana Fiaz agreed as well. Right, okay, so that's been approved. Well done, everyone. Thank you very much, Ellie and Jane and Dave. Your work on this has been commendable. Right, we're going to be moving on to the next agenda item, which is allocation of community infrastructure levy for enabling works of priority leeway bridges. And this is the agenda item 16, and this is pages 682 to 718. And I'm going to do a quick, rapid introduction. So basically, this agenda item is requiring or requesting Cabinet to approve a capital investment of £1.75 million. And it's a core part of an ambitious collaboration that we're undertaking with Tower Hamlets under the auspices of what in planning policy terms is known as a OAPF, standing for Opportunity Area Planning Framework. And essentially the sides of the Lower Lee Valley that are located in Tower Hamlets and Newham are currently being unlocked for significant amount of housing delivery and commercial to create new, exciting, dynamic, vibrant neighbourhoods that will be able to employ people and school young people. And if we do not achieve the connectivity between those two neighbourhoods on either side of the Lower Lee Valley, we are going to impede the ability of our respective residents to access a whole raft of skill and job opportunities in order to earn more money. So I am requesting, as the portfolio lead, if Cabinet could give approval for this really important infrastructure project, which will draw down money from the community infrastructure levy in order to invest in these really important bridges. That's all I'm going to say for now. Manmohan, is there anything else that you need to add? But you have 30 seconds.
No, I don't have very much to say except that yes, this is a very important part of the infrastructure for the connectivity between Tower Hamlets and Newham, which will unlock a lot of benefits. They're estimated to be almost about 250 million over a period of 30 years. And of course, much more housing and industrial and commercial activity as well. Thank you.
Super. And just to reiterate that really important point, Officer May just now, the estimated combined economic benefit just under £200 million over the next 30 years, including £17.5 million worth of environmental benefits and enabling the unlocking of some 10,500 jobs. So, colleagues, I am going to be asking if you would kindly indicate your approval or otherwise of this paper. So if you go to the recommendations on page, sorry, just 685. 685. So note the recommendations. So do you agree, Councillor Charlene McLean?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Beckles?
Agreed.
Councillor Terry Paul?
Agreed.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz? Agreed. Councillor Shaban Mohammed?
Agreed.
Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway?
Agreed.
Roxana Fiaz-Mir agrees as well. Okay, fine, so that's that. And then we're going to be coming to agenda item 17, procurement of council tax and benefits, and I will invite Councillor Terry Paul to introduce it.
This is a contract award asking for permission, and what I will say, obviously, council tax and benefits, one of the services which comes into most contracts of our residents. Every year we get the letter which tells us the current situation with council tax. And obviously what we are doing now is to try and make it more efficient and much more agile. And this is seeking authority to award the contract to Northgate. As it says there, it's a 6-year contract, 4-year should award with an option for 2 years. And the total contract price is £1.1115 million.
Thank you very much. Just in the interest of time, I'm gonna, unless it's something really pressing, I'm going to suggest that we move straight into the recommendations. So colleagues, if I can draw your attention to the recommendations on big page number 1142, that's right, 1142. Do you agree the recommendations? Councillor Charlene McLean?
Agreed.
Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed, Chair.
James Beckles?
Agreed.
Terry Paul?
Agreed.
Sarah Ruiz?
Agreed.
Shaban Mohammed?
Agreed.
Carleen Lee Parkway?
Agreed.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agreed. And now we're going to be going on to the final cabinet paper, Postal Services Contract Award. Terry.
Thank you. Again, this is seeking approval to award a contract. The winner of the contract notice, the Royal Mail, and the main contractor is the Royal Borough of Greenwich. What this does, this enables us to make a £30,000 saving, i.e. by not paying standard Royal Mail rates. And it obviously, one of the questions which I probably will get asked is, what are we doing to reduce our postage? A lot of work has happened in that regard, but obviously there are situations where we need to send post out, i.e. our council tax reduction, and also elements around legal notices we need to send out.
Parking.
And parking fines, which is often one. We don't like to send them, but we have to.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any pressing questions, colleagues? No? Right, so can I just draw your attention to the recommendations 2.1.1 and 2.1.2 as set out on big page number 1148. Do we agree? Councillor Charlie McLean? Agree. Zulfikar Ali?
Agree, Chair.
James Beckles?
Agree.
Terry Paul?
Agree.
Sarah Ruiz?
Agreed.
Jabbar Mohammed?
Agreed.
Colleen Parkway?
Agreed.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz? Great. Have you noted all of that, Joy?
Yes, Chair, I have. Thank you.
Right, super. So on that note, just wanted to thank all those members of the public or press that have been watching us this evening during this live broadcast of our formal cabinet meeting. A restful and enjoyable rest of the evening, and for all those celebrating Eid Mubarak, and I trust you've had a lovely day. And thank you very much, officer colleagues and members of the executive. I close this meeting.